Alright, so hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and since the response on the Grappler Quick Look was so positive, I thought we would jump into another one right away, and by far the most popular one was the Vandal variant of the Imperator. So let us jump right into it, shall we? Now the parts for the Imperator Vandal are only available as a drop from the Forma event, which happens every now and then thanks to the invasion system. But don't worry if you didn't get the Imperator Vandal during the most recent Forma event, because you can also buy the parts from other players using Platinum. And just like with any other art gun, if you want to use it against the Profit Taker or just use it in a normal mission, you will have to get yourself a Gravimag from the Tenno Lab in your dojo. Though, as some people have pointed out in the previous video, you can also buy the Gravimag for 20 Platinum from the market. The Imperator Vandal requires you to be at least Mastery Rank 5 to use it, and it does either 40 damage in Arcing mode or 50 damage if used with a Gravimag in Atmosphere. The stats in general are actually completely different when you compare the Arcing variant to the Atmosphere variant, so let's just toss this away and let's use something else. There we go, much better. So as I've said already, when you're in Arcing mode, the weapon will do 40 damage, out of which 16 is impact, 14 is puncture, and 10 is slash. It will also have 10% crit chance with a standard 2x crit multiplier, 5% status chance, and fire 16.7 rounds per second. It also has a pretty sizable 300 round magazine, and it recharges 75 rounds per second, and the recharge starts almost instantly, so it's near impossible to run out of ammo with this thing. When you call it down on the ground, however, and you use it in Atmosphere, everything gets buffed and the weapon just turns into an utter monster. Doing, as I mentioned already, 10 more damage for a grand total of 50, 20 out of which is impact, 17.5 is puncture, and 12 is slash, but the crit chance will also jump up to 28%, the crit multiplier will be above average at 2.4 times, and the status chance goes up to 12% as well. But on top of that, the fire rate will also jump up to 25 rounds per second, and while you still keep the 300 round magazine, you now have 1200 rounds in a reserve with a 2-second reload. And finally, the weapon comes with 1v polarity as standard, which is very nice. Now the build I ended up using on the Imperator Vandal requires 2 Forma, where you add 2 Vs, though if you want to max everything out, you will have to add a 3rd Forma, because maxing out automatic trigger will make it so that you are 1 point short. But even I don't think it's worth adding on the extra Forma just to get 10% more fire rate, and that says something coming from me, because I Forma stuff a lot. But anyway, the mods I'm running are Rubido lined barrel for damage, dual rounds for multi-shot, and then we have parallax scope for crit chance, hollowed bullets for crit damage, and then the automatic trigger for extra fire rate. Now, the reason why I decided to go with automatic trigger in this slot is because even if you take out automatic trigger, I mean hell, if you go with a 0 Forma setup and you take out polar magazine as well, this weapon is still going to trash the Profit Taker orb, so I was like, well, might as well kill it a little bit faster. And we once again top it all off with polar magazine for cold damage and combustion rounds combined with electrified barrel for radiation, which is the combination of elements that the big spider orb is weak to. Though, just like with any other art gun, I would very much recommend you go with corrosive and heat if you want to use this in a normal mission as sort of a cooldown via the Gravimag, because that's going to cover far more enemies. Because radiation and cold, while good versus some really tough enemies like bombards and napalms because they have alloy armor, isn't as good versus the majority of enemies like corrosive and heat is. Now the damage in Atmosphere is actually quite spicy even against something like Corpus Text, where corrosive and heat isn't the best kind of elemental combo to use, especially if you keep on automatic trigger for the extra fire rate. So this is definitely something I can totally see people using as sort of a big cooldown. But enough with the blabbering. How good is it against the Profit Taker orb? Well,
compromise the exoskeleton of the legs and then work your way to the torso.
I'm fairly confident in saying that we can classify this as not bad. I mean, I was already pretty impressed when I was doing the fight with the Grappler yesterday, but this is a whole other level of, oh my god, look at this damage. It's really, really good. And I hope you now understand why I said that you don't really need that 10% extra fire rate. I mean, it's not gonna hurt, you're gonna kill it even faster if you do put on one more Forma and you get that 10% extra fire rate, especially if you use it on something like Chroma that can actually multiply the damage of it. And let us also not forget that as you're farming the spider, you're gonna get some other Arcing mods, like for example, there is one that gives you crit chance and crit damage when you're aiming down sights. So even though you can make the damage even more ridiculous than this, for me, it's fast enough. The thing about this though is that while the Imperator Vandal is definitely great for the Profit Taker orb, and I will definitely use it there because it is far superior to both the Grappler and the Flactus, and I might even use it as sort of a big cooldown to shred a beefy sortie boss, I'm still gonna stick to either the Flactus or the Grappler for both normal Arcring missions as well as regular missions where I just use it with a Gravimag. Because while it is definitely fun to run or fly around with what is essentially a love child between a minigun and a heavy machine gun, it's not as much fun as a plasma ballista or a quad barrel fully automatic grenade launcher. But that's okay, the weapon doesn't have to be the best at everything, it has its niche, it's really good at doing single target damage, and that's why I'm going to use it for the Profit Taker and every now and then for a sortie. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the Imperator Vandal, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.
Strong, united, working till we